A discarded alien girl and a lone human uncover a cosmic secret, defying danger to find home and hope among the stars. Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The air in Krenvar's lower market reeked of rust and sour steam. Under the flickering methane domes, stalls sprawled like a maze of jagged metal and glowing signs. Traders barked in a dozen alien tongues, hawking glowing fruits, synth meat skewers, and salvaged tech from forgotten wars. The ground, slick with oil and grime, pulsed with the hum of the planet's core machinery. In the shadows of a collapsed stall, a small figure huddled, unnoticed by the crowds. Her name was Lyra, though no one here cared to ask. Her blue skin shimmered faintly under the grime, her silver hair matted with ash. She was bare, her thin arms wrapped around her knees, eyes wide but unseeing, as if she'd learned to disappear while still breathing. Lyra had been left here days ago, abandoned by a smuggler who'd called her defective stock. The market's law was brutal, 3 days without a buyer, and the sweepers would claim her for the incinerators. No one approached. Her silence unnerved the vendors, her stillness scared off scavengers. She wasn't chained, Krenvar's cruelty didn't need chains. Time was enough. Jaren Holt moved through the market with a scavenger's caution. His coat, patched and heavy with hidden tools, brushed the ground as he scanned the stalls. A human in his late 30s, Jaren was a rare sight in Krenvar's depths. His dark eyes flicked from vendor to vendor, searching for parts to fix his broken shuttle. He'd been stranded here for months, surviving by trading repaired tech for food and shelter. His hands, calloused from years of tinkering, twitched at the sight of a cracked circuit board on a nearby table. He didn't haggle, attention drew trouble. As he passed a pile of warped crates, a voice cut through the market's din. Still here? Worthless thing. A vendor, a hulking Krenvari with scales like tarnished bronze, spat toward Lyra's corner. No bids. Rot claim by tonight. Another vendor laughed, tossing a spoiled fruit core that landed near Lyra's feet. She didn't flinch. Jaren's steps slowed, his instinct to keep moving warring with a tug he couldn't name. He glanced at her. Her eyes, silver and sharp, met his for a moment before dropping back to the ground. Something about her stillness wasn't fear, it was defiance, quiet and unbroken. He should have walked away. Krenvar rewarded survival, not sentiment. But Jaren had seen too many things discarded: machines, lives, hope. He crouched near her, keeping his distance. Hey, he said softly, his voice low under the market's roar. You okay? No answer. Her lips moved faintly, a soundless hum, like a melody caught in her throat. It wasn't random. It had rhythm, deliberate, like a code. Jaren's brow furrowed. He'd heard something like it years ago, on a derelict station, where an old trader had hummed a star chant before vanishing into the void. The vendor noticed Jaren's pause. Want her? Take her. She's no good to me. His tone was sour, but his eyes glinted with greed, expecting Jaren to haggle. Jaren didn't. He pulled his coat off, revealing a worn jumpsuit and a belt heavy with tools. He laid the coat near Lyra, not touching her. Take it if you want, he said. Her fingers twitched, then slowly reached for the fabric, pulling it over her shoulders. It was too big, swallowing her frame, but she clutched it like a shield. A crackle broke the air. Third bell approaches. All rot claim assets will be processed. The market's enforcers would come soon. Jaren's jaw tightened. He pulled out his data slate, an outdated model patched with wire and hope. Tapping quickly, he accessed an old Earth treaty, a preservation clause for cultural artifacts. It was a long shot, but it might work. She's not rot claim, he said, turning to the vendor. She's a cultural asset. Protected under interstellar law. The vendor's scales rattled with irritation. She's got no papers, human. No value. Jaren projected the treaty's text, a faint hologram flickering in the steam. Interfere, and it's obstruction of preservation law. The vendor muttered but backed off. An enforcer nearby glanced over, then turned away. Some laws still held weight, even here. Jaren looked back at Lyra. I'm Jaren. Come with me. You'll be safe. Her eyes searched his, weighing his words. Slowly, she stood, wobbling on bare feet. The coat dragged behind her as she followed him through the market's twisting paths. The crowds parted, uninterested in another human's folly. They climbed rusted stairs to Jaren's home, a cramped workshop above a derelict fuel station. Inside, shelves overflowed with wires, circuits, and half-built machines. A single cot sat in the corner, next to a cracked window showing Krenbar's methane sky. You can clean up there, Jaren said, pointing to a basin of recycled water and a stack of clean rags. Clothes too, if you want them. He turned away, busying himself with a broken engine part, giving her space. Behind him, he heard the soft splash of water, the rustle of fabric. When he glanced back, Lyra was wrapped in a loose tunic, her silver hair damp and catching the light. She sat against the wall, watching him, still silent but less like a ghost. Jaren set a ration pack beside her, nutrient paste, tasteless but filling. She didn't touch it. He didn't push. Instead, he pulled out his slate and typed a phrase in an old Earth script, "You are safe." He showed it to her. Her eyes lingered on the words, then flicked to him. She nodded, just once. It was enough. The workshop's hum filled the silence. Lyra's presence felt fragile, like a spark that could fade any moment. But she was here, and Jaren felt something shift inside him, a flicker of purpose he hadn't known he'd lost. He didn't know her story, but he'd learn it. For now, she was safe, and that was a start. The workshop hummed with the faint buzz of Krenbar's Undercity, a constant reminder of the world outside Jaren Holt's cluttered sanctuary. Tools and wires spilled across every surface, glinting under the dim glow of a single overhead lamp. Lyra sat against the far wall, her knees drawn up under the oversized tunic Jaren had given her. Her silver hair, now clean, caught the light like liquid metal, but her eyes, sharp, silver, and wary, never left him. Jaren pretended not to notice, focusing instead on a tangled circuit board he was prying apart with a worn screwdriver. He'd learned long ago that trust wasn't built by staring. Lyra hadn't eaten the ration pack he'd left her last night. It sat untouched, its foil wrapper reflecting the lamp's glow. Jaren didn't comment. He'd seen hunger before, on himself, on others. Sometimes it wasn't about food but control, a refusal to owe anything to anyone. Instead, he boiled water in a dented kettle, the steam curling into the air with a faint hiss. He poured it into a chipped mug, dropping in a pinch of dried herbs from a tin. The smell was sharp, not pleasant, but grounding. He set the mug near her, not too close, and went back to his work. "You can use anything here," he said, not looking up. "Tools, console, whatever." "No locks." Lyra's fingers twitched, but she didn't move. Her silence wasn't empty, though. Every so often, a soft hum escaped her lips, barely audible, like a melody woven into her breath. It wasn't random noise, Jaren had caught its rhythm yesterday in the market, a pattern that felt alive, like a signal meant for something or someone. He didn't ask about it. Questions could scare her off, and she was already a shadow ready to slip away. The console in the corner flickered to life, its screen cracked but functional. Jaren had rigged it from salvaged parts, a patchwork of human and alien tech. He tapped a few keys, pulling up a star chart he'd been decoding for a client, a smuggler who paid in fuel cells. The chart was incomplete, missing coordinates he couldn't afford to buy. Lyra's eyes flicked to the screen, her hum pausing for a moment. Jaren noticed but kept his voice casual. "You know stars?" he asked, nodding at the chart. No answer. He shrugged and turned back to the circuit board, letting the silence settle. Outside, boots clanged on the metal walkway. Jaren tensed, his hand sliding to the multi-tool on his belt. Krenbar's enforcers patrolled randomly, sniffing out unregistered tech or unclaimed assets like Lyra. He'd used the preservation clause to get her out of the market, but clauses meant little if credits didn't change hands. The footsteps passed, fading into the city's rumble. Jaren exhaled, glancing at Lyra. Her eyes were on the door, her body still as stone. "They're gone," he said. She didn't relax, but her hum started again, softer now. Jaren decided to try something. He pulled a small, broken device from a shelf, a navigation core, its casing dented but its innards intact. He set it on the table between them, along with a tiny screwdriver. "Ever fix one of these?" he asked. Lyra's gaze shifted to the core, her fingers curling slightly. She didn't speak, but she leaned forward, just enough to show interest. Jaren pushed the screwdriver closer. "Go ahead. It's junk unless you make it work." She hesitated, then reached for the tool. Her movements were precise, like she'd done this before. She pried open the core's casing, revealing a web of delicate wires. Her fingers moved with a quiet confidence, untangling and reconnecting circuits Jaren had struggled with for days. He watched, impressed but careful not to show it too much. "Not bad," he said, keeping his tone light. "Where'd you learn that?" Lyra froze, her hands hovering over the core. For a moment, Jaren thought she'd retreat back into silence. Then she hummed again, a single note, sharp and deliberate. It wasn't an answer, but it was something. She pushed the core back to him, now humming faintly with power. Jaren raised an eyebrow. "You're full of surprises." The day stretched on, the workshop's rhythm settling into a quiet dance. Jaren worked on his repairs, Lyra watched or tinkered with small parts he left out. She didn't eat, but she sipped the herb tea, her face wrinkling at the taste. Jaren hid a smile. By evening, the console flickered again, this time with a new pattern, a sequence of lights that matched the rhythm of Lyra's hum. Jaren stared, his mind racing. "You did that," he said, not a question. Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time, she nodded. He leaned closer to the console, studying the pattern. It wasn't random, it was a code, layered and complex, like nothing he'd seen in human or Krenvari tech. "This isn't just a hum," he said, half to himself. "It's a language, isn't it?" Lyra's lips parted, then closed. She didn't confirm, but her silence felt heavier now, weighted with secrets she wasn't ready to share. The market's third bell rang outside, a low clang that vibrated through the walls. Jaren's stomach tightened. The enforcers would be back, and word of a human harboring an unclaimed alien would spread fast. He glanced at Lyra, who was watching the console again, her fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. "We might need to move soon," he said. "This place isn't safe forever." Lyra's hum stopped. She looked at him, her silver eyes sharp with something new, focus, maybe, or resolve. She tapped the console, bringing up the star chart Jaren had been working on. Her fingers moved quickly, adjusting coordinates, filling in gaps Jaren hadn't been able to crack. The chart shifted, revealing a faint path to a star system marked as unmapped in every database Jaren knew. "What is that?" he asked, his voice low with awe. Lyra didn't answer with words. Instead, she hummed again, a melody that seemed to echo the chart's lines. Jaren's heart raced. This wasn't just a map, it was a destination, one she knew by heart. But before he could ask more, a sharp knock rattled the door. "Halt," a voice barked. "Open up. Market wants a word." Jaren's hand went to his multi-tool. Lyra tensed, her hum cutting off like a switch. The air felt thick, the workshop safety fracturing. Jaren met her eyes, a silent promise passing between them. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The knock on the workshop door echoed like a warning shot. Jaren Holt froze, his hand tightening around the multi-tool on his belt. The voice outside, gruff, laced with Krenvari impatience, called again. "Holt! Open the door, or we come in ourselves." Lyra's silver eyes darted to Jaren, her body tensing like a coiled spring. The console between them still glowed with the star chart she'd adjusted, its faint lines tracing a path to an unmapped system. Jaren raised a hand, signaling her to stay quiet, and moved toward the door, his mind racing for a plan. He cracked the door just enough to see the enforcer, a Krenvari with jagged scales and a stun baton glowing faintly at his side. Behind him stood two others, their eyes scanning the walkway's shadows. "What do you want?" Jaren asked, keeping his voice steady but low. "You've got an unregistered asset," the enforcer growled, his gaze flicking past Jaren into the workshop. "Market loss as we check." "Step aside." Jaren's jaw tightened. He knew check meant confiscation, or worse. The preservation clause he'd used to save Lyra wouldn't hold up under scrutiny without credits to grease the deal. "She's not an asset," Jaren said, leaning casually against the doorframe to block their view. "She's a cultural archive, protected by treaty." "You saw the hologram yesterday." The enforcer's scales rattled, a sign of irritation. "Treaties don't mean spit without papers." "Move, human." Jaren glanced back at Lyra. She was crouched by the console, her fingers hovering over the controls, her expression unreadable but sharp. The star chart flickered, its lines pulsing faintly in rhythm with the hum she'd stopped moments ago. Jaren's mind clicked, her hum, the chart, the code. It was all connected, and it was their way out. "Give me a day," Jaren said, turning back to the enforcer. "I'll get the papers." "You know I'm good for it." The enforcer snorted but didn't push forward. "One day, Holt. Then we take her, and you're in the pits." He turned, his lackeys following, their boots clanging down the walkway. Jaren shut the door and locked it, his heart pounding. He turned to Lyra. "We need to leave. Now." Lyra stood, her movements fluid despite the tension in her frame. She tapped the console, bringing the star chart back into focus. The path she'd drawn led to a system marked only by a faint glyph, a symbol Jaren didn't recognize but felt ancient, like something carved into the bones of the universe. "What is this place?" he asked, his voice soft but urgent. Lyra's lips parted, then closed. Instead of speaking, she hummed again, a low, resonant melody that seemed to vibrate through the workshop's metal walls. The console responded, its lights shifting to match her rhythm, revealing more details, a planet, hidden behind a veil of cosmic storms. Jaren stared, his scavenger's instincts kicking in. "That's no myth," he muttered. "You know where this is, don't you?" Lyra nodded, just once, her silver eyes steady. Jaren didn't have time to marvel. He grabbed a duffel from under a workbench, stuffing it with tools, a spare power cell, and the navigation core Lyra had fixed. "My shuttle's in the lower docks," he said. "It's not pretty, but it'll fly barely. We get there, we're gone." Lyra didn't hesitate. She grabbed the coat Jaren had given her, wrapping it tightly around her. The journey to the docks was a blur of shadows and steam. Krenvar's undercity pulsed with life, vendors shouting, drones buzzing, the air thick with the stench of fuel and decay. Jaren kept Lyra close, her small frame tucked behind him as they wove through crowded alleys. Her hum was gone now, replaced by a focused silence that made her seem older, sharper. Jaren's shuttle, a patchwork of scavenged parts, sat in a rusted berth, its hull dented but intact. He'd been fixing it for months, dreaming of escape but never believing it possible. Now, with Lyra's map, it felt real. They slipped inside, Jaren locking the hatch behind them. The cockpit was cramped, wires dangling from the ceiling, but the controls hummed to life under his hands. Lyra sat in the co-pilot's seat, her fingers brushing the navigation panel. The star chart appeared on the shuttle screen, her hum resonating faintly as she adjusted settings with a precision Jaren couldn't match. "You're not just a passenger, are you?" he said, half smiling. Lyra didn't answer, but her eyes glinted with something like pride. The shuttle groaned as it lifted off, the docks fading into a haze of methane and light. Jaren steered toward the upper atmosphere, dodging patrol drones with practiced ease. But as they cleared Krenvar's orbit, a new signal blinked on the console, a ship, fast and armed, closing in. Jaren's stomach sank. "Varkis," he muttered. The smuggler had a reputation for hunting anything of value, and Lyra's map was worth more than Jaren's life. "Hold on," Jaren said, pushing the shuttle's engines to their limit. Lyra's hands flew across the panel, rerouting power to the shields. The shuttle shuddered as a warning shot grazed its hull, sparks flying in the cockpit. Jaren glanced at Lyra, expecting fear, but her face was calm, her hum returning, a steady, defiant melody. She tapped the console, and a new path appeared, weaving through an asteroid field. "You sure about this?" Jaren asked, his hands tight on the controls. Lyra nodded, her hum growing stronger. Jaren grinned despite himself. "All right, partner. Let's see what you've got." He steered into the field, rocks spinning past like silent threats. Lyra's hum guided him, her melody syncing with the shuttle's sensors, highlighting safe paths through the chaos. Jaren's human instincts, quick thinking, stubborn grit meshed with her alien precision, and together they danced through the field, Varkey's ship struggling to keep up. They emerged on the other side, the smuggler's signal fading. Jaren let out a breath, his hands shaking but steady on the controls. Lyra's hum softened, but her eyes were bright, alive. "You saved us back there," Jaren said. "That hum, it's not just a song, is it?" Lyra looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "It's my people. It's home." Jaren didn't push for more. He set the coordinates for the unmapped system, the shuttle humming as it jumped to lightspeed. The stars blurred outside, and in the quiet, Lyra's melody filled the cockpit, a promise of something worth finding. The shuttle's engines thrummed a low, uneven growl as it sliced through the void, stars streaking past in blurred lines of light. Jaren Holt gripped the controls, his knuckles pale from the strain of the asteroid field escape. The cockpit smelled of burnt wiring and recycled air, a faint hum of machinery underscoring the silence between him and Lyra. She sat in the co-pilot's seat, her silver hair catching the glow of the navigation panel. Her fingers rested lightly on the console, tracing invisible patterns as if she could feel the stars beyond the hull. The star chart she'd revealed, an ancient path to an unmapped planet, pulsed faintly on the screen, guiding them deeper into uncharted space. Jaren stole a glance at her. Lyra's face was calm, but her silver eyes flickered with focus, scanning the sensors for any sign of Varkey's ship. The smuggler's signal had faded after the asteroid field, but Jaren knew better than to trust the quiet. Varkey's wasn't the type to give up on a prize like Lyra's map. "You okay?" Jaren asked, his voice cutting through the hum of the shuttle. Lyra nodded, her lips parting to release a soft, melodic hum, a sound that seemed to steady the air itself. It wasn't just a habit, Jaren realized. It was her anchor, a tether to something bigger than the cramped cockpit they shared. The shuttle rattled as it hit a pocket of turbulence, a reminder of its patchwork state. Jaren had built it from scraps, each weld and wire a testament to his stubborn refusal to stay grounded. "She's held together with hope and spit," he muttered, patting the console. Lyra's hum paused, and her lips twitched, almost a smile. She tapped the navigation panel, adjusting the course with a precision that made Jaren's clumsy repairs look amateur. "You've flown before," he said, not a question. Lyra didn't answer, but her fingers moved faster, rerouting power to stabilize the engines. A warning beep broke the moment. Jaren's eyes snapped to the sensors, a ship was closing in, its signature matching Varkey's sleek hunter craft. "He's back," Jaren said, his voice tight. Lyra's hum stopped, her hands freezing on the panel. The smuggler's ship was faster, better armed, and gaining ground. Jaren pushed the throttle, but the shuttle groaned in protest, its limits already stretched. "We can't outrun him," he said, scanning the console for options. "Got any more tricks in that hum of yours?" Lyra's eyes narrowed, and she leaned over the navigation panel, her fingers flying across the controls. The star chart shifted, zooming in on a dense nebula nearby, a swirling cloud of gas and dust that glowed like a bruise against the black. "There?" Jaren asked, skeptical. Nebulae were death traps for most pilots, their currents and debris fields shredding anything less than a warship. But Lyra's hum returned, steady and sure, as she plotted a course straight into the cloud. Jaren hesitated, then grinned. "You're crazy. I like it." He steered into the nebula, the shuttle's hull creaking as tendrils of gas enveloped them. The sensors fritzed, overwhelmed by electromagnetic noise. Lyra's hum grew louder, its rhythm syncing with the shuttle's flickering lights. Jaren watched, half in awe, as she adjusted the shields, diverting power with an instinct he couldn't match. The nebula's currents tugged at the shuttle, but Lyra's course held, guiding them through narrow gaps between spinning debris. Varkey's ship followed, its weapons firing blindly into the haze, beams scattering harmlessly in the gas. "He can't see us," Jaren said, his voice low with excitement. Lyra didn't respond, her focus unbreakable. Her hum shifted, a new note weaving into the melody, and the shuttle's sensors flickered back to life, displaying a path through the nebula's heart. Jaren followed it, his hands steady on the controls, trusting her lead. The smuggler's ship fell behind, its signal weakening as the nebula's interference scrambled its targeting systems. Jaren let out a breath. "You're a damn navigator," he said. Lyra's hum softened, but her eyes stayed on the console. They emerged from the nebula into a quiet stretch of space, the star chart pulsing brighter now. The unmapped planet was close, its coordinates locked in, a faint green world hidden behind a veil of cosmic storms. Jaren leaned back, his heart still racing. "How'd you know that path?" he asked. Lyra's fingers paused, and for the first time, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "My people sailed the stars before yours left their cradle. We sang to them." Jaren stared, the weight of her words settling in. Her hum wasn't just a code, it was a legacy, a map woven into her breath. "Your people," he said slowly. "They're out there, aren't they? On that planet." Lyra didn't answer, but her silence felt like confirmation. The shuttle's engines hummed steadily now, carrying them closer to their destination. Jaren felt a spark of hope, something he hadn't allowed himself in years. But the quiet didn't last. The sensors blared again. Varkey's ship had cleared the nebula, its weapons hot and closing fast. Jaren cursed, pushing the shuttle into a dive toward a nearby asteroid cluster. "He doesn't quit," he muttered. Lyra's hum returned, sharp and urgent, as she recalibrated the shields. A blast rocked the shuttle, sparks flying from the console. Jaren yanked the controls, weaving through the asteroids, but a second hit grazed the hull, shaking the cockpit. Lyra grabbed a tool from Jaren's belt, a welder, small but precise, and scrambled to a damaged panel. Her hands moved with a speed that stunned him, patching the breach before the cabin lost pressure. "You're fixing my ship mid-fight?" Jaren said, half laughing through the chaos. Lyra didn't look up, her hum steady as she worked. The shuttle stabilized, giving Jaren a chance to loop behind an asteroid and fire a decoy flare. Varkey's ship took the bait, veering off to chase the false signal. Jaren exhaled, his hands shaking but still on the controls. "We make a good team," he said, glancing at Lyra. She met his eyes, her expression softer now, almost trusting. The star chart blinked, signaling their approach to the cosmic storm shielding the planet. Jaren set the course, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. Whatever lay ahead, they'd face it together, two strays against the void, bound by a map and a melody. Part 5, The New Horizon. The shuttle trembled as it pierced the edge of the cosmic storm, a swirling maelstrom of electric blue plasma and jagged debris. Jaren Holt's hands gripped the controls, his jaw tight as he navigated the chaos. The cockpit's lights flickered, casting shadows across Lyra's face as she sat beside him, her silver eyes locked on the navigation panel. Her hum, now a steady undercurrent, wove through the shuttle's hum, guiding Jaren through the storm's currents like a lighthouse in a tempest. The star chart on the screen pulsed brighter, its final coordinates locked on the hidden planet, a green jewel cloaked in the storm's fury. "Almost there," Jaren muttered, dodging a chunk of spinning rock. The shuttle groaned, its patchwork hull straining against the storm's pull. Lyra's fingers danced across the console, rerouting power to the shields with a precision that still amazed him. Her hum shifted, a new rhythm emerging, and the sensors adjusted, highlighting a narrow path through the chaos. Jaren followed it, his human instincts blending with her alien knowledge, their partnership a seamless dance of trust and skill. The storm parted suddenly, revealing a planet below, a lush world of emerald forests and shimmering lakes, its atmosphere glowing faintly under twin suns. Jaren's breath caught. "That's it," he said, his voice soft with awe. Lyra's hum faltered, her eyes wide as she stared at the screen. For the first time, her expression cracked, hope, raw and unguarded, flickered across her face. "Home," she whispered, the word barely audible. But the moment shattered. The sensor screamed, and Jaren's heart sank. Varkey's ship had followed them through the storm, its sleek hull glinting like a predator's eye. A blast rocked the shuttle, sparks erupting from the rear console. "He's on us!" Jaren shouted, banking hard to avoid another hit. Lyra scrambled to the damaged panel, her hand steady despite the chaos, patching circuits with a scavenged tool. Her hum returned, sharp and focused, as if willing the shuttle to hold together. Jaren dove toward the planet, aiming for a dense forest to lose Varkis in the terrain. The shuttle's engines whined, pushed beyond their limits, but Lyra's quick fixes kept them alive. Varkis fired again, a beam grazing the hull, and Jaren cursed, weaving through towering trees that loomed like sentinels. "We can't keep this up," he said, his voice tight. Lyra's hum grew louder, and she tapped the console, pulling up a topographic map of the planet's surface. A narrow canyon appeared, its walls tight but navigable. "There," she said, her voice steady. Jaren didn't hesitate. He steered into the canyon, the shuttle's wings scraping rock as he followed Lyra's coordinates. Varkis' larger ship struggled to follow, its bulk too unwieldy for the tight space. Jaren grinned, adrenaline surging. "Nice call," he said. Lyra's hum softened, but her eyes stayed sharp, scanning for threats. The canyon opened into a clearing, and Jaren landed the shuttle hard, its landing gear grinding against the earth. They stumbled out into a forest alive with strange, glowing plants and the hum of unseen creatures. Lyra's bare feet sank into the soft soil, her coat dragging behind her. She stopped, her hum fading as she breathed in the air, clean, warm, alive. Jaren watched her, a knot loosening in his chest. "This is it, isn't it?" he asked. Lyra nodded, her silver hair catching the sunlight. "My people," she said softly. "They're here." Before Jaren could respond, the roar of engines split the air. Varkis' ship hovered above, its weapons charging. Jaren grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her toward a cluster of trees. "Run," he shouted. They sprinted, branches snapping underfoot, as Varkis' ship fired, scorching the ground behind them. Lyra's hum returned, urgent and rhythmic, and Jaren realized it wasn't just a sound, it was a signal. The forest answered, its glow pulsing in time with her melody. Figures emerged from the trees, tall, blue-skinned aliens with silver eyes like Lyra's, their own hums joining hers in a chorus that vibrated through the air. They carried no weapons, but their presence was a force, their hums weaving a shield of sound that disrupted Varkis' targeting systems. His ship veered, its shots going wide. Jaren stared, awestruck, as Lyra stepped forward, her hum leading the chorus, her voice stronger now, unbroken. Varkis landed, his hatch opening to reveal his hulking Krenvari form, scales glinting with malice. "Give me the map," he roared, advancing with a plasma rifle. Jaren stepped in front of Lyra, his multi-tool raised like a makeshift weapon. "You're not taking her," he said, his voice steady despite the odds. Lyra's hum didn't waver, and the aliens closed ranks, their sound growing deafening. Jaren saw his chance. He dove for a fallen branch, rigging it with a spare power cell from his belt. He tossed it at Varkis' ship, the cell sparking and overloading the vessel's open hatch. The explosion was small but enough to disable the weapons. Varkis roared, lunging at Jaren, but Lyra's people moved faster, their hums converging into a pulse that knocked the smuggler to his knees, his rifle clattering away. Jaren scrambled to his feet, panting. Lyra stood at the center of her people, her hum now a song of triumph. The aliens parted, revealing an elder with intricate markings on her skin. She knelt before Lyra, her own hum blending with hers. "You brought us home," the elder said, her voice resonating like a bell. Lyra's eyes shone, tears tracing her cheeks. "I remembered," she said. The elder turned to Jaren, her gaze warm but piercing. "You, human, carried her to us." Jaren shrugged, uncomfortable with the gratitude. "She did most of the work." The elder's hum softened, a gesture of respect. Varkis, subdued and disarmed, was led away by the aliens, his fate unclear but no longer a threat. As the twin suns set, casting golden light over the forest, Lyra's people invited Jaren to stay. He hesitated, his life as a scavenger all he'd known. But Lyra's hand brushed his, her hum a quiet invitation. "There's more to fix here," she said, her voice steady. Jaren looked at the vibrant world, at Lyra's newfound strength, and felt his own spark reignite. "Yeah," he said, a grin breaking through. "Let's build something." The forest hummed around them, a chorus of life and hope. Jaren and Lyra stood side by side, two strays who'd found a home, their story just beginning.